All right, it looks like we're live. So, hello, Right on Con, everybody. I am Sara Raasch. I am the author of Snow Like Ashes and These Rebel Waves, most recently. And this is the marketing panel, and I am joined by.
Hi, I'm Alexa Donne. I am the author of Brightly Burning, which came out last year, my debut novel. It is Jane Eyre in Space. And my next one is The Stars We Steal, not out till 2020 publishing. This is
I don't know that one.
My Amazon Echo just went off. Sorry about that. It does that. Stars We Steal is Jane Austen Meets the Bachelor out next year. So, yeah. It's persuasion.
Yes.
So.
It looks like we were just joined by our third member. So Kosoko Jackson was not able to make it, unfortunately, but we have.
I'm Eric Smith. I'm a YA author and a literary agent who was supposed to be on another phone call, another conference, but they added me to this one. So, hi.
Hi.
I'll talk about marketing things.
We're excited to have you. So I think what we're going to do is answer some questions that are coming in now. So we'll see when they pop up in the sidebar.
And please ask lots of questions if you're watching this.
Yes, please.
Marketing is such a broad topic, so we need to know what to cover.
Where do we start? Okay, so the first question is, what marketing role does the author take on in traditional publishing? Yeah, do you guys want to just jump into it? Should we do just like round table kind of thing, or?
Sure. That is a loaded question. Well, I'll say that the author has to take a role in marketing if you're being traditionally published in a way that wasn't necessarily true years ago. But it's going to vary so widely depending on your publisher, on their marketing plan, on what you like to do, what you have time to do. But you definitely have to do something.
Yeah, it's a partnership.
Yes.
You know? Like, if you're the kind of author that thinks your book's just going to get published and that's it, that's all the work you have to do, that's bad. You need to, work. I don't want to say just as hard as the publisher, but you got to put the effort in there. Reach out to your local people. Reach out to your local booksellers, your libraries. I feel like the author, you're in a position to do a lot of that personal connecting with people in a way that sometimes the publisher isn't. So you should absolutely want to put that work in because it's the fun kind of work, I think.
Yeah, I think it should definitely be the fun kind of work because it is whatever role it is to you is what you're comfortable doing. So I think a lot of times people think they have to do everything, and so a lot of it comes across as disingenuous or it just doesn't land the same kind of effect. So I think finding what works for you is a big part of it too, which just comes from trial and experience and growing in the industry.
It's also about sustainability. Yeah. Like you can really be raring to go and do all the things, but then if you don't stick with them, it actually makes you look worse because it's inconsistent. It's best to pick one or two things and do them well and consistently.
Especially on social media. I think having consistent content, oh my God, yeah. If you post like one YouTube video a year, nobody's ever going to follow you versus doing like a consistent, like bi-weekly kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is there such a thing as over-promotion? I've gotten hype backlash over a few products in the recent past, and I've gotten discouraged for weeks after release day since I felt spoiled over this product.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I do think promotion is a weird magical thing where you can theoretically push too soon and your buzz can peak before something comes out. I do certainly feel readership can feel that you're like oversaturated. But it's this, there's no magical formula. So publishers are also always trying to like figure out the balance. I do think you could potentially share too much of your book, like the actual like words in the book. So then people aren't incentivized to buy it potentially.
And I could also go the other way too, where like I've accidentally spoiled things and that made people want it. So it's such a weird dichotomy because there's nothing that is 100% all the time. It's so weird.
And I think it depends on the kind of like over promotion sort of things. I definitely do see the occasional writer who like every hour it's like a link to their Amazon page, you know, or, you know, every Instagram story is another, you know, buy my book kind of thing. I think as long as you're spreading it out a little bit, it's fine. I don't know. It can look annoying, but at the same time, it's social media. You only see the stuff disappears within like, what is it, like 7 minutes is like the way the algorithm works. So I don't know. It's your job. You know, this is what's going to get you paid and buy your groceries. So I think it's okay to push your stuff as much as you can, as long as you're not getting uncomfortable. Just don't do that thing where you like automatically DM someone your link or whatever.
Oh God. Yeah.
That's bad look.
Oh, thanks for following me. Now here, buy my book. No.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
And I guess generally it's all about balance. You want to feel like a real person. Because what's going to make someone want to buy your book more than anything is just them liking you. If they think you're funny or charming or that you give good information, that can go a long way rather than, you know, you spamming about your book constantly and throwing up links and talking about it all the time. It's you know, just being yourself goes a long way.
Yeah, I think people think they have to put a link to their book. I mean, people know how to Google, like they know how to find your book. So it's more about, creating a platform of something that people want to pursue and to find on their own. All right. Do you have regrets on things you did to promote your book? Things that were not worth the time or money?
Ooh, I did a pre-order campaign for my first YA novel that it was very expensive and I didn't really count on that. I made like these like necklaces, I did all this cool stuff, and I was like, yeah, it's open internationally, and then like
that's your mistake.
No, it's just like
the rookie mistake, and like some of the packages were like $15, and it was rough. I spent a lot of money and I didn't really make it back. So I wish I had read more about how pre-order campaigns worked. I was a baby author. I did not know. So yeah, that was a regret. So I would say the lesson learned there is to do your research and talk to your author friends before, you know, you're sending $20 packages around the world and losing all your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally same. Like I love international readers, but you have to consider ROI because international mailing is so expensive. And like if you haven't sold in that territory, especially, it's tough. I do have one primary regret. You can plan so much and then still be like, oh, I commissioned art. And it was really a cart before horse thing. I didn't need to. It wasn't a massive chunk of money, but I didn't end up using it for anything. And I realized too late, it's like, no one cares about my characters yet. So why am I spending money? So that was just like something where I tell people, like, I got really caught up in the excitement of, wouldn't it be so cool to have character art? And personally, it just wasn't something that had any real return on investment for me. Anything else? Sarah, what about you? Regrets?
Yeah, same kind of thing. So actually just recently, so like this is my fifth book's coming out this year, and I still do marketing things that I'm like, oh, why did I spend that much money? So I design a lot of my own stuff, and there was a sale at Vistaprint, so I like jumped on the holidays and I ordered a bunch of stuff, and it came after the sale, and I got it, and it was all blurry.
Oh no!
And I was just like so hyped on the sale that I was like, no, I had to buy all this. It was like 50% off. I spent so much money on stuff that I just couldn't use. And it was my mistake that I used the wrong JPEG, and it was just it was awful. I was so upset. So yeah, I think it all goes back to just don't rush things. Be calm, do your research, don't get caught up in Vistaprint sales, and yeah.
And I think it's worth reversing that, maybe like things that are valuable that you did that you don't regret. Like bookmarks are the best investment I ever made because they're not that expensive.
Yeah,
and they're like evergreen premium items.
Yeah, I mean, you will use bookmarks for your book forever. I mean, you can have them on your signing table 20 books from now. Yeah, bookmarks are a great investment for every book.
And going to conferences was really good for me for promotion-wise. Like my first YA was a digital-only book, so it kind of didn't make sense for me to go to conferences for signings because there was what am I gonna sign? There's nothing there. But I met so many people at those conferences. I made so many friends. It really like connected me to the YA community in a way that I wasn't before. So going to things like that was so helpful, so great.
Yeah, I mean, the internet's great for a lot of things, but it is nice to be in person for things and to find like, your neighborhood and to remind yourself that people aren't all just on Twitter and Instagram. They're actually live people too. Okay, what were some of your more enjoyable ways you promoted, and where does most of your marketing traffic come from? Well, we kind of started to touch on that, so this is a good segue.
Yeah, events for me, definitely. Yeah.
I agree about cons. I love cons. And if you're a science fiction and fantasy writer, they make sense. I don't heavily recommend fan cons to contemporary writers because it's a very different, unless their contemporary is nerdy, like about fandom. But fan cons are just so much fun. I find them so energizing. I love connecting with other authors and readers. And you can never prove that they lead to sales unless you're like stalking the bookseller. But it's like word of mouth. Like you never know, like that one person who is at a panel for you might have recommended it to one friend who recommended it to 5 friends. So it can really build. So that's both enjoyable and just so valuable for me. And then my other one in terms of marketing traffic, honestly, YouTube has been more valuable and successful than I ever anticipated it would be. The session that posted just before this of mine is me talking for like 30 minutes about why people should join YouTube. And I'm happy to blather about that, but I'll stop for now.
Yeah, actually, YouTube's one of the social media things that I like don't do at all. So if you do want to go off on YouTube, I'll be sitting here taking notes too.
It's hard. And that's the one caveat I offer. It is a lot of work, but for me, it's worth it. Because there's a whole audience who will never find you on Twitter, your book on Twitter. They'll never be on Instagram, but they're on YouTube, and that's all the media they consume. And I've just been so surprised. So many of them are like, oh, I don't normally read sci-fi, but I'm going to pick up your book. And I'm like, cool, sure. Yeah. And it's the engagement thing. It's because they feel you're talking to them, so they feel like they know you.
Yeah, for me, it's less about talking about myself and talking about other people when it comes to my promotion tools that work. I blog for a lot of places. I write for like Paste Magazine, and I do a podcast on Book Riot. And it's never about me. It's always about other people. And when you do that, and when you share stuff that other people are going to learn about, they're going to pay attention to you. They're going to follow you and trust you. So the sort of long con of that is, hey, maybe you'll buy a book I wrote at some point. And it also makes you feel good because I like to talk about other people.
Yeah, I think doing the comp title thing helps a lot too. Like a lot of people know, like, oh, I know this book. So since you were talking about that book or comparing your book to that book, then that kind of leads people into it. Yeah. I've done my marketing things kind of shifted in the past couple of years just with transitioning out of the Snow Like Ashes trilogy and into this new series. I feel like a lot of the younger teen readership has changed where they are on social media. So I'm actually kind of in the midst of trying to revamp things and figure it out because they're definitely not on Twitter anymore. I think everyone on Twitter is like over the age of like 20. Instagram seems to be a little more, a little younger, but I am not super good at the Bookstagram photos. I don't know if you guys are good at that either. I try real hard, but I'm just not so good at taking the photos.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It is. I'm so bad at Instagram as like a promotional tool. Like I post pictures of my baby and pictures of my dog, and that's my Instagram. I've never
pictures, yeah, like babies and dogs. Like that's like people want that stuff. So you already have to battle there. Like cute animals, cute babies. Like that's in books. So just throw in your book like in the background and things. Like that's all you need for that. Okay. So are pen names still doable, either to keep genres separate or to keep some distance from your personal life? Yeah. So I actually do use a pen name, Sara. Name. Yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised when they find that out, like from authors in real life, that like, oh, that's not who you actually are. You'd be surprised at how many authors are incognito that you wouldn't know.
Yeah, Eric Smith is my real name, unfortunately, but yeah.
Oh, you can never hide.
1 second. I am experiencing a nosebleed, so I'm going to be right back. Other problems, not really. So keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, but you know, I'm as someone that's like a literary agent, I think pen names are fine. Like it doesn't sound off any warning bells for someone like me. And usually it's for a good reason. You know, it's they're some authors have day jobs where it doesn't quite gel. Maybe they're a lawyer or some other kind of public figure that they want to avoid that connection there. As long as it's not a pen name where you make it up because it sounds cool, I think those are kind of silly. I think when there's a reason, it makes sense.
Yeah, it has to be some kind of reason, because otherwise it is just kind of like Engelbert Humperdinck or something like bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people do use them for a lot of reasons. So I think it's definitely still doable. Yeah, it shouldn't be a concern if it's something that you want to think about doing. Okay, where are some of the most important ways to get yourself and your book out there? What social medias are best for building your audience? That's a good question now. I feel like it has been a weird, ever-evolving thing this past year, 2 years. And I honestly don't know that anybody knows anymore, at least for the YA genre. Because like I said, the current genre of teens, they aren't really on social media so much anymore. I'm not on Twitter, they're not on Facebook, Instagram a little bit, like Snapchat and things. So it's just kind of a matter of figuring out where they are and where's best to engage them. Because like when Snow Like Ashes was coming out, everybody was still on blogs, and it was like really easy to engage people on blogs. But it's getting harder and harder to find where people are and where to reach them. But yeah, it's still evolving.
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that one.
I know, I'm like, I know that's terrible, but that's kind of the truth. I've talked to a lot of authors about this, about like what they're doing in terms of marketing and where they are. And the people are trying a bunch of different things. I mean, like you said, pre-order contests, people try those all the time. And there's just a constant circulation of things that people are attempting just to figure out what works. And it's really hard to find what works. You don't know what will work until you try it and it doesn't work, or it does. And it's just, so if any of you guys know of any new social media things where the teens are, you can let us know.
Yeah.
I'm still on Twitter, and Eric's still on Twitter, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a resurgence in like newsletters lately, mostly because it's the one kind of like social media-esque communication that you can control. Like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they all have algorithms where there's a good chance no one's going to see anything that you're doing. No one does Facebook fan pages anymore because it costs money, and then people still don't see what you're up to. So using a newsletter lets you directly chat with the people, once a month, however often you want to do them. And there's some authors that do just great newsletters to interact with their fans. Susan Dennard's newsletter is excellent.
Yeah.
Erin Bowman's is probably my favorite one. Amy Spalding does really great newsletters. And they have subscriptions in the thousands. It's great. Probably more. So yeah, I'd start a newsletter. It might be hard if you don't have a book out yet. Like if you're just starting, but your friends are going to want to keep up with what you're doing. So it doesn't hurt to have one.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're not just going to get 1,000 newsletter subscribers overnight. You have to start. So it's a good idea to start it even before you have a published book. That way you can kind of get it going. Like I didn't have a newsletter until These Rebel Waves, which came out last year. So I just kind of was starting from scratch with that one. And it didn't really go anywhere. I'm going to try to get it going for the sequel. But yeah, it's nice to have things started before, so you can kind of pull it along with you as your career takes off, as opposed to just kind of diving in later on. Okay, what roles do your agent and editor play in marketing your book? Is it all you, or do agents and editors give you a checklist or guidelines as to what you should be doing to market your book? I feel like this question is for you, Eric.
Yeah, I love this question. So it's not an agent's job to market your book. The agent will pay attention to the marketing, and if things aren't going well and you have complaints with the publisher, that's when we get to be bad cop and step in and say like, hey, what's going on? Why isn't X and Y happening? It's also not the editor's job to market your book, but it is your editor's job to be like, what is the word? They're like your champion at the publishing house, So like they're gonna inform marketing, they're gonna talk to marketing and publicity about your book. Your publicist might not have time to read your book. There are a lot of books that come out, so your editor is the one that's fighting for your book and talking about it. But yeah, it's not the editor or agent's job to market the book, but they will, of course, talk about it on the internet. But at the end of the day, it's marketing, publicity, and you.
Yeah, and my agent's always a good one to tell me when not to spend money. Like I'll run a couple of my ideas past her, and she'll be like, "You don't need to spend thousands of dollars." So they're a good voice of reason, because the author gets caught up in the hype of, "Oh, I want to spend money on these pretty things," and the agent editor can be like, "No, just calm down, take a breath." So it's nice to have them, because they are the emotionally distanced, whereas you're not emotionally distanced at all as the author. Okay, what's the best way to go about connecting with bloggers, vloggers, and bookstagrammers about promotion in a genuine way?
Oh, just a personal email. Before I was an agent, I worked as a marketing guy at a publishing house. And the best way to get in touch with them is to go on their websites, see what they like and what they don't like. Most bloggers have a very simple, these are my review guidelines. And if your book seems like the kind of book they might like, just send them a nice email. Doesn't take a lot of time. I don't recommend doing some giant BCC. Hey, bloggers, how's it going? That they are going to hate you. Yeah, just reach out personally and be a person. It'll work.
Yeah, and it's good too, especially if you haven't gotten published yet, to interact with them online. A lot of people I know are aspiring authors are also bloggers and bookstagrammers. So just kind of being a person, interacting with them as if you are a person, and just being supportive and excited about their pictures. Hey, this is a great photo or whatever. Yeah, just it's about creating that genuine connection. So when later on, when you're successful or they're successful, you can all kind of help each other and support each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to the differences in marketing stories for different age groups? For instance, the picture books parents and teachers will be a huge target audience, and somewhat for middle grade as well, versus with YA teens are making more decisions for themselves. How does that change marketing methods in your opinion? That is a really good question. Yeah, because picture books, middle grade, chapter books, they have those gatekeepers, which those are the people that you're trying to get, like the librarians and whatnot. And then YA, it's directly to them. There's definitely that big switch between middle grade and YA, where it goes from the gatekeepers to direct.
Yeah, I feel like picture books, chapter books, etc. That marketing happens heavily towards librarians, heavily towards the school markets, because that's the kind of word of mouth that's going to make those books sell really well. Yeah, but like you were saying with YA, sometimes you can reach the audience directly. Sometimes they reach out to, but they do the same thing where they reach out to librarians in high school and things like that. But it's a slightly older audience where you can actually sometimes talk to them.
Yeah, I think with YA you get more people emailing you or messaging you through your website saying, "Hey, I read your book," and you get more interaction that way. Versus middle grade and younger, they tend not to have access to that, or they probably shouldn't if they're younger than that. So yeah, we could spend a whole hour talking about just those differences in general, just because there is such a vast difference between the age groups and what works with them and what doesn't. But I think a lot of the difference will come down to your publisher as well, because with middle grade and younger, since it is so librarian focused and school focused, a lot of that stuff tends to happen on the publishing side and the publicity, because they have the direct access already to the librarian circuit and the school book show circuit and things like that. So yeah, I don't do middle grade, so I'm saying all this as somebody who doesn't even do middle grade. But yeah. Okay. You mentioned regretting spending too much money on marketing. How much money should you be willing to put into marketing?
Ooh.
Was it Nora Roberts who had an actual percentage that she said? What was it?
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, there was some quote from her. I think it was 15% should go to
Nora
marketing.
Roberts, though, she can just
I know, right?
Can have to be a bestseller. She's fine.
Yeah, I feel like 15% seems a little high. I don't know if there is a tried and true number for how much you should spend. Not all of it, not everything.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah, as much as you're comfortable spending on it, as much as you're fiscally able to. I think a lot of people think that they have to kind of go above and beyond with it. And that's not necessarily true. I think just being smart about it and doing your research is the best way that you can make sure your money's being used wisely.
Yeah, like recently I wanted to, I was thinking about like doing like enamel pins for like my book that comes out next year, because a lot of authors do them. They look so cool.
Yeah.
And then I saw that sometimes it can cost up to like $3 a pin. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Oh, and then you have to give them away for free too. So it's like, yeah, it's that.
Yeah. So like that's a sort of thing where I guess it depends on how much you're getting paid for your book. If you have like the disposable income, yeah, go for it maybe. But I have a baby in the next room. I no.
That's like the only thing you're doing for the book, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, nothing else, no bookmarks, no anything. Like,
So sorry about that.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I've this isn't marketing, though it kind of is. I've been having chronic nosebleeds, and my fear has always been this is going to happen on a panel. But at least it's a panel at my home.
Right? Yeah. It's fine. And honestly, I think everybody would understand if you're at a Comic-Con with like.
Oh, I would just be like, yeah, the blood is part of the marketing.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Right?
Literally.
So what did I miss?
Money discussions and what else?
And marketing.
Marketing discussions. Yeah. Well, we'll give you the next question then. What can you do if you and your publisher have different ideas about how to market your book? Do publishers ever take issue with the way authors are self-promoting?
Mine doesn't. Mine lets me do anything I want in a good way, meaning they're very supportive. They like any initiative, and no one's gotten mad so far. I have heard of publishers who do get more prescriptive though. They're more likely to slap on the wrist if someone does something that they feel might hurt their brand. But that's never happened to me, thankfully. Because yeah, I love my publisher. Who's your publisher? HMH.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like I'm always worried that they're gonna be like, we hate your YouTube channel, but they like it.
Yeah, it's like hard to think of like a bad marketing thing that a publisher would be like, don't do that. You know, I guess if you were saying like, everyone go pirate my book, you know, that might be,
yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to think of something that'd be terrible.
I have heard of cases where it's happened. This can happen in kind of the branding of transparency about publishing. I have heard it happen where an author is a little bit too honest about the downsides of certain things, and I've heard sometimes their publisher might get upset. It hasn't happened to me though.
Yeah. Whenever I have a book come out, I'll submit to my publisher like a list of the things that I'm planning on doing to let them know, but also so like we don't double dip. So like everybody knows what everybody's doing. Because it is a partnership and it's teamwork. So I want to make sure that like my ideas are meshing with their ideas and that their ideas are meshing with mine. So everybody's on the same page. So it's not, I've never had it where they're like, how dare you have done that? Yeah, I was trying to live by what's the quote? Better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yes.
So I was trying to like, I'm always kind of like, maybe they won't like if I do this, I'll probably just do it anyway. And then and see how they react afterwards. They're usually fine with it. Like I've never done anything crazy, but
you brought up a good point though when you said like so you don't double dip on something, because like one way I could see a publisher getting upset is like maybe they're planning something really cool for your cover reveal, or they're planning like an excerpt release, so they're doing certain things, but you get too excited and you want to give it to some blog or something. That might get them a little mad, you know, because they might have some initiative planned. So just do what Sara does and make sure you're talking to them.
Yeah, communication is key in a lot of things. Just letting them, like I'll drop my editor an email saying, hey, FYI, I'm doing this. Like I did a local TV interview, and like I know like it wouldn't have affected Harper in New York at all, but I still let them know like, hey, by the way, this is happening. Like just letting you know. And they're like, okay, great. But just so they're aware of these things. And it's just they just want to be aware. They just want to know because it's their product. They paid for it and they like to know what's going on with it. Okay, where am I? Okay. Did you have launch parties for your new books and how did they turn out? Was it up to the author to set this up and what did you do during them?
Yeah, I mean, I had one last year and it was definitely up to me. It was just a normal indie bookstore, have some author friends come out and read sort of jam. It was nothing all that crazy. And in my experience, a lot of times it is the author that puts the launch parties together. But if it's a bigger book, sometimes the publisher will swoop in and organize something in New York or someplace. But I have smaller books.
Yeah, I think 9 times out of 10, the author is responsible for setting up their events. Like, I don't know of any publisher that would be like, no, you have to do this events, because if like, some authors just aren't event people, and that's fine. Like, you do what makes you comfortable. But yeah, so during the event for These Rebel Waves last year, what was I doing during it? I was having a full-on panic attack during it. Like, I started to get dizzy and like almost pass out. So like sometimes you don't have to do events. So like for all like the introverts out there and people with anxiety disorders, like don't feel like you have to do events if you want to become an author. It's your comfort level. It's what you want to do with it. Like I even had friends up there with me, and it was still like a terrible, terrible thing. So yeah, events are like a whole interesting ballpark.
Yeah, I did ask my publicist to set it up at the bookstore, like to book it, because I'm terrified of picking up the phone and talking to strangers, which is very grown up of me. But then everything else was on me. So I got my own moderator, which is just a friend of mine. And like I bought food and all that kind of stuff because the bookstore allowed food. And what I did is I told my friend that I knew I had to talk about my book, but I wanted it to be as short as humanly possible. I didn't really want to talk about myself for very long. And luckily she's a pro and she made it really funny. We had like a good back and forth, and she ran all the questions by me ahead of time, which I also appreciated. And then I cut to the whole signing celebrating thing as quickly as possible. It was really just friends and family there. So
yeah, I think a lot of people think they have to have this like hour-long speech and like, God no, like 10 minutes. And I don't think the audience likes that too. Like if you can get it done.
I think, yeah, like 20 minutes of talking, 20 to 30 minutes max is like perfect. Because I've been to plenty of them as well. Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. Yeah. Don't drag it on. Yeah. I've seen some agents querying authors some basic marketing plans when they ask to read the full. Is this a new thing? Yeah. I've heard that. Really? People.
Which agents?
Yeah.
And is it nonfiction or fiction?
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's nonfiction, I can see that to some extent. But for a novel, no, the story is what matters, and that's it.
Yeah.
I've
not heard of that.
And you can't expect the average author to have a marketing plan. I will admit, I had one, but I am not normal. I should have said my day job is marketing. That's why. So I was just ready. And I didn't end up using it, so it was fine.
Oh my god! And see, that's the thing. Like, you can
things change. Yeah.
Oh my god, they change. Like, you have like, even if you sell the book, as soon as you get an agent, it'll be like what 2-3 years before the book comes out. Like, things are going to change online, and like what works and what doesn't. So, I can't see that if an agent asks you to have a marketing plan, that it would affect whether or not they represent you. Because why would it? I don't know. That seems odd to me.
Yeah, that's bad.
And I will say, if you really want a marketing plan, I do have one you can download on my website. I'm extra. I made a YouTube video. It's a whole thing. So if you look up my YouTube video, I have a link to sample Excel marketing plans. So yeah.
Oh, I'll be doing that.
Raven, sorry.
That's awesome. All right. Have you ever encountered bad times to advertise?
Ooh.
Well, I feel like around the election was really a hard time to advertise. I feel like everything went on a standstill for like 4 or 5 months after that. I didn't have any books coming out around that time, thank God, but I knew people who did, and it was just kind of like this dead zone of nothing worked and nothing, like, it was hard. So I feel like things like that make it difficult, and there's nothing you can do, and it sucks because there's just nothing you can do, and it's not you, it's not your book, it's not your method, it's just the world being kind of sucky.
Well, one rule of thumb is the holidays. So the December holidays it's one of the worst times if we're talking about like hard advertising, just because of saturation, because everyone's advertising. So it can be a lot of noise, but also we don't have that many books coming out around that time, so it's not that bad. But like high holiday travel times, people just aren't going to be looking at messaging.
Yeah. How do you balance the responsibility of marketing your own book while writing a new one? Both take so much time, energy, and time. Yeah, they do. It comes down to a lot of self-discipline. Like I had a lot of calendars, and like organizing things.
Yeah, I have a marketing mode, like a marketing and promo mode, and a drafting / revising mode, and they don't really go well together. I find one detracts from the other. I actually love promo, and I have to stop myself because it's like you actually have to write books to be a writer. Reminder to self. And so, yeah, sometimes you have to do both at the same time, and it's just hard. But sometimes I just have hats and I'm like, okay, you get to be in promo mode for the next 3 weeks, but then you have to switch to drafting mode or revision mode. And I try to, you can plan promo ahead of time. Like it could be writing posts ahead of time so you can post them later. Like it could be, for me, it's filming videos. So I'll just film a ton of videos so they're ready to go so that I can focus on writing or revising when I need to. It's hard though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because you are your own boss. So if you slack off, like, who's going to get on you for it? Yeah, I mean, this job is hard because of that. You have to be very self-disciplined, and you have to learn what works for you in terms of organization and self-motivation. And it's all personal. I mean, you just try different things and kind of find what works in terms of getting yourself to do certain things at certain times. I always find it helps me to break it into chunks. Like, you know, for this hour, I'm doing marketing, and I'll take a break for lunch, and then I'll do drafting. Yeah, it does get very overwhelming trying to do it all at once.
That's smart. And the other thing I'll say is sometimes you have to just forgive yourself if you can't juggle it all. And it's okay to kind of let go of certain things. So meaning when I was just in the most bonkers time of revising while having to also promote, I didn't do my author newsletter. And I'm like, you know, some things have to slip as long as you're doing other, you know what I mean? Or like, it's okay to not be on Twitter for a month.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay to not be on Twitter.
You can usually when an author like fades on Twitter, it's like, oh, they're on deadline.
Yeah.
You can tell.
Yeah. And a lot of people will even make their Twitter handle on hiatus.
Yes.
Yeah. It's okay. Because honestly, your priority should always be working on your book, because that's your product and that's what you're marketing. And if you don't have a book, you have nothing to market. So that should always take precedence. It is like a lot of times I will use marketing as like a break. Like I'll do like graphic design as like a way to kind of give myself a break if like revisions are going terribly. So that's a nice way to balance it, I feel like, too. But yeah, it should always be book first if you can. Okay, how much of a platform did you have before getting published? Is it worth putting time into building a platform before a debut is on the calendar?
That's a good question. So I had a bit of a platform before my first book, because my first book was nonfiction. I had a blog, I wrote for a bunch of places, so I needed the platform. But when it comes to fiction, like in my opinion, as an agent, platform doesn't matter. It's the story. I'm never going to want to sign a novelist just because they have a bunch of Twitter followers. It's the book that matters. So I don't know. Nonfiction, platform matters. Fiction, I'm of the opinion it doesn't at all. It's nice to have because it lets me know that maybe the author is an interesting person. I don't know. But I don't think it's required.
No, definitely not required. I wouldn't. Yeah. Like it can help for sure, but it's not. It's not a make or break.
Yeah, I'd say I didn't have a platform, but I did have a head start in the sense that I was already involved in the community. And I think that's the important distinction to make. Yeah. I'd been on YA writer Twitter for a while. I moderated a subreddit, I still do. I'd done the con circuit. I was a volunteer at Dragon Con on the YA track for years. So like I had the relationships that were building. And like occasionally I tweeted something semi-smart, but like that's not really a platform, but I didn't have nothing. Mm-hmm. So once I had the book deal, it was much easier to just turn up the dial. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't start my YouTube channel until after I had my deal. And it's much easier to grow a platform when you have something to talk about and grow. So it happened after most of the escalation.
Yeah, I think it's nice to be on Twitter and Instagram and Reddit and whatever before you get a debut, just so you can kind of figure out how things work and what the community is like, and so you're not just going in like cold turkey and not knowing what's going on. So it can help you and your own psyche. So because it's nice, you need self-care and to take care of yourself and prepare yourself for it. Oh, I lost my place. Okay, I know books with big advances usually come with marketing plans to match from the publisher, but if your book has a more modest advance, what does that marketing plan look like? Is there one?
I mean, every publisher is going to have a marketing plan for every book, even if it's a smaller marketing plan. If it's a more modest advanced book, you're probably looking at the usual, sending it out to big trade magazines, sending it out to short lead mailings, which is like smaller papers and smaller magazines, larger websites, blogger outreach, digital galleys. You still get all like those really awesome fun perks that every other author will get. It's just those major marketing campaign things you might not get those sort of things, like the the display at Barnes and Noble, or the several city book tour. Very few authors get thrown on the book tours. So it's not necessarily bad that you don't get those things, because some of those things you can do yourself. Not the Barnes and Noble display. You might get kicked out of the bookstore if you walk in with one of those. But going on a book tour, you could totally set something up.
Who hasn't done that, though? Who hasn't gone to Barnes and Noble and taken a book they like and put it somewhere and walked away?
I found that even with modest advances, you get the bare bones, you get what everyone gets, but also you'll still even get low-cost digital tactics. You don't have to have a massive deal to get that. They might do a BookBub promotion, a Storygram tour. They're going to send your arc to key booktubers. So you're still going to get a lot. And also, I'll say that it's different with every house and every imprint. So for example, I'm with a publisher where you don't have to get a massive amount of money to get robust marketing support, simply because the list is small. Every single title gets a push. It's just it does scale. And also because it's a smaller publisher, relatively speaking, to the big five, you don't have to have a massive advance to be a lead title as well. So your mileage really does vary so widely depending on the publisher and the market. You could be acquired for a low advance, quote unquote, but then like the market shifts and your topic's really hot. And then next thing you know, you get a big push.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have friends who have gotten big pushes and had no idea that their publisher was doing what they were doing for it. And then they walked into Barnes & Noble and were like, oh, my book play. And like, it's so strange. This industry, like, things can change overnight and things can change in like 5 years. It's just, there's two speeds. It's on or off. It's crazy.
And plus they look to what's happening. So if a book suddenly gets 2-starred reviews, exactly, next thing you know, it's like, oh, we're putting you on a mini book tour now.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me clear my schedule. And you're just in kind of that shock state. Yeah. All right, how do you see the future of marketing books? Will they abandon old media like TV networks in favor of digital completely on platforms like social media and YouTube? Will there be more camaraderie between reader groups, bloggers, vloggers, bookstagrammers? What innovations are needed? Oh my God, this question. I feel like it could be like a thesis in marketing.
I think it'll change based on where people are, you know, like if there's still people watching TV, they're still gonna, I don't know, I've never seen any book marketing on TV except for James Patterson and his
right.
But they're gonna go where the people are, they're gonna go where the readers are. And that's sort of always the solution when it comes to book marketing. Readers, people started using Instagram like crazy. Bookstagram became a thing. Now publishers treat it very seriously. So that's just the answer. They're always going to go where the readers are.
Yeah. There's always that constant race to figure out where teens are and what will engage with them, and try to figure it out before they even know where things are. And I mean, that's constantly what marketing people and every publishing houses are doing, is just trying to predict things and what will work and what won't work. And if we had answers to that, we'd make a lot of money, because we would know what many people are trying to figure out. But yeah, it is. I think it's also find that out. Like just paying attention is important too, like what teens are doing and what they're into nowadays. It seems like the current generation of teens are not online as much because they've grown up in the social media age and ads don't really work on them anymore. They are so smart. Like this is current generation of teenagers. They're just wildly smart and nothing gets past them. Like they can see an advertisement miles away, no matter how well you disguise it. So it's going to be interesting trying to figure out how to market to them without it feeling like marketing because they can see through all the BS. They're way smart. Okay, what are some of the more creative marketing ideas you've seen used by authors? Ooh.
Lately, I've seen a lot of authors doing, instead of like the usual pre-order, they encourage people to like request the book at the library before it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. That's a great way to, get the book in libraries, and also, make it accessible to people that maybe can't drop that, $18 on a pre-order to get some piece of swag kind of thing. And I've seen people sort of ditch the book trailer in favor of like book trailers as GIFs to share on social media. And I like that a lot. Like the little 10-second animated GIF that catches my eye a lot more than like a 2-minute book trailer ever will.
Yeah, I think there was a study done with attention spans generationally speaking. So like millennials have a attention span of 10 to 12 seconds. And the current generation of teens has an attention span of like 8 seconds. So yeah, it's horrifying. But that's how, but they've grown up in this, like I said, this era of ads and stuff. So like they can tell in like 7 seconds, that's all it takes for them to know like, okay, this is not something worth my time. So doing the things like the GIFs like that, where it's like 3 seconds of boom, 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 that's my book. Like that's kind of what it takes now, is to just do something that quick in that instant. So yeah, I have no idea how to make GIFs, but I keep trying to figure that out.
Well, I'm still noodling on the last question, and this I guess this counts as creative marketing, because I think probably the smartest thing now is the brand of the author. That what's becoming more important is who you are, and just being likable. Like I mentioned, engagement, and like if people like you, they'll buy your stuff. I don't know if that's necessarily creative, except I have seen people get really creative about how they share themselves with people, Instagram stories and kind of sharing snippets of their life. And that's kind of something I think people underestimate, the soft sell, how that is more effective. Authenticity is something that the kids, millennials and under, love. I'm a millennial, of course, but I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, people love to feel like they're a part of something good, that they're supporting something good, especially like now everyone's onto like the causes and they want to feel like they're like the cause is worthwhile. So yeah, having a brand that is yourself and is who you are, I think that's huge. People love to be able to support that and be able to say like that they're part of something that is meaningful, it's really important nowadays. 5-minute warning. Sorry, I don't know how long ago we got that. 1 minute warning. Oh my God. Okay. Wow. I'm bad at question. Sorry. Wow. Okay. Last question. Do any of you do school or library visits to promote your books? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have not personally. My full-time job prohibits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I would, but I haven't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's what you can do and what you're comfortable doing. It's not a requirement to do school and library visits or any kind of visit. So. Okay, do we want to remind everybody where they can find all of us before we get kicked off?
Yeah, I'm Eric Smith Rocks on Twitter, Instagram, and my website is ericsmithrocks.com. That's it.
And my website is sararaashbooks.com. My last name is Raasch. It's crazy and weird. That's all my stuff's on there.
I am Alexa Dunn everywhere. Probably the best place to find me is YouTube. I have over 220 videos on writing, craft, the industry, et cetera, so on and so forth. And I spend most of my time there now because Twitter is overwhelming and I have to write books. So, and Instagram, I do Instagram. I'm terrible with my feed, but I try to do stories sometimes.
Yeah, I love the stories.
Yeah.
They're way easier.
You just start up and then it disappears. It's great.
24 hours, done. Okay, I think I'm not seeing